What is up guys, welcome to this video today. I'm currently recording this from the Maldives, and this is unfortunately the first piece of content I've actually made since being on my trip. I really wanted to do loads more, but honestly I quite naively underestimated the sort of pace of the trip and things like that. Like, I'm with some of my friends and they already had all of these things booked, and then I just decided kind of pretty last minute actually to come along on the trip. But I want to give you guys an update upon some of the things that have been happening. If any of you saw on my Instagram, I got really quite sick in Nepal, in the mountains. It was like the worst location ever. It was super remote, so I had to be dramatically airlifted to hospital in a helicopter because I literally became so weak over one of the nights, which was really scary actually how quickly it happened, that I could not walk down to a safe zone in the mountain where it would have been easier to be evacuated. So that was literally the only option. Now, I know you guys know that I am, you know, I have resilience and I like to push myself and things like that, but when I tell you like I had nothing left in that moment, I'm absolutely honest. And honestly, that really knocked me because I just, it was the first time I felt really quite helpless, you know, and just being under the care of other people and really, really needing them, not kind of just relying on them like, you know, I could do this myself, but I'll ask somebody. I felt at that moment, if my friends weren't there to assist me, I'd have really been in trouble. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the trip. It started in Hanoi, and then we went to India, went all around the area known as the Golden Triangle, which is where like the Taj Mahal is and some of the other holy sites and stuff. Then we went up to Nepal to the mountains to do some hiking, which is where the thing happened. And then we came down to Sri Lanka, and then we are now in the last destination, which is the Maldives. Another thing is that this has really taught me a lot about myself, because I quite naively came on this trip thinking that I'd be able to sort of live like I did at home. You know, there would be like, oh, you can just go and buy some eggs and stuff. Everyone eats eggs, don't they, and stuff like that. But things were really, really difficult. The food quality hasn't been very good outside of Vietnam, coming to India and stuff like that. Obviously, a massive Hindu population, so a lot of it is vegetarian, hard to find good quality meats, especially in quantity as well. Like, you might find a place that's non-Hindu that serves some chicken, but it's like a few tiny pieces in a curry like that. And actually, like, it's kind of funny because I went to India for this extended time, but I actually don't like Indian food. So again, you know, probably was a bit stupid actually. Didn't think the trip through much. I just thought, oh, it's going to be an adventure, it's going to be cool, but I definitely paid for it in some regards. So that first part of the trip was really fast-paced, and like I said, I wanted to try and make content, but just wasn't really able to do it, wasn't able to make anything interesting. It would have just been like travel content, and you know, I know you guys want to see stuff from the gym, the martial arts, and how I'm kind of keeping that stuff up, you know, as I'm traveling, and that's what this video will be. But it wasn't until we got to Sri Lanka that things settled down a little bit, because when we were traveling around India and Nepal, it seemed like every few days we would go to a new destination through, quite frankly, rough travel. Like, even the Indian first class train is not really the standard of what I'm used to. And so it was really, really difficult. But when we got to Sri Lanka, we were staying there for a longer time anyway, and we decided to just stay in the same town for the whole trip. So I noticed that this was something that I really value, that I didn't really know about myself too much before, because obviously when you're just in your normal environment, you don't realize how much you're taking it for granted. Being able to buy the food that you like, just being able to stick to your routines. And one thing about myself is that routine is so, so important, like for my mental health and my physical health obviously as well. And if I fall off that, and if it kind of creeps up unconsciously, I start to, I don't know, just become really agitated and stuff like that. So when we were there, we were able to stay in the same place, and I had somewhat of a routine. Not exactly what I would have liked, but there was a gym close by that I could walk to. There was also good food there, and that was absolutely massive. So what you can do there is you can go to the local fish markets, and the fish literally comes off the boat straight onto the market. You can buy it instantly, and then you can take it into a restaurant, and they will cook it for you really, really nicely, and they'll like season it amazingly and stuff, just having some rice and vegetables with it to kind of get back on sort of the somewhat familiar foods that I've been having, and just sort of supplementing with like boiled eggs and oatmeal in the meantime. So I'm gonna have a stroll down to this local pier, and I'm probably gonna try and do some like acrobatic dives off the pier into the sea. And you might be wondering why I'm like wearing t-shirts and stuff here, because I have come to the local islands in the Maldives because I haven't got like 5k a night to drop on a room. yet. Anyway, in the resort islands, it's quite strict Muslim law here, and when you're walking around the streets, or even going to the beaches actually, you have to wear t-shirts over your body. You can wear shorts and t-shirts or like a tank top. But there is a private beach where tourists can go if you want to get a tan and swim without your shirt off. So hopefully get some good footage doing this stuff. Hopefully it's not too busy as well. But the island is absolutely tiny. I'm nearly there already. So hello, I'm nearly there already. So it's pretty cool. Everyone's like really friendly, as you just saw there. So, oh my God, it is hot. The sun is like direct and there is no shade at all, no clouds, because this place is right on the equator as well. Literally, like, the weather is just the same all year round, which is kind of crazy, but it is very hot. You have to be careful. What is going on, guys? So we're in the Gymshark thermal in 30-degree heat to go for the swim, which is insane, but I can't stand wearing like baggy t-shirts when I jump in the water, so this kind of sticks to your body a bit like a wetsuit, and when you're wet it's not too bad. So let's go and do some dives. So I did manage to get a few sessions in as I was traveling. I actually met up with a really popular Indian fitness influencer, Siddhant, and that was amazing. We went out for some food together, and then we managed to squeeze in a short martial arts session in a park because I was actually leaving Delhi, which was where we met the next day, but that was really cool to meet him. Got a few sessions here and there in it, but it wasn't again until Sri Lanka where there was a familiar gym that I could go to regularly. And when I got there, I did notice that I had lost significant strength. It wasn't until I sort of like saw myself in the mirrors in my like regular gym gear, I was like even leaner, and I felt like I'd lost like a little bit of size, but I felt so depleted. You know, like looking unbelievably shredded isn't always good. And my body's tendency when I'm sick and like when I'm underfed is to lose weight. And I know people think that that would be like a great thing to do, but not when you're already very lean. You're kind of like on the border of it being like, if you go too low, there's going to be problems, which I sort of hover around and I can maintain at home, but when that's stressed, it becomes a problem. And so as that happened, I felt very weak, and like, it was tough the first few gym sessions, trying my best to do the normal exercises that I do, but I was really struggling with weights that I would normally absolutely smash through. You know, it was like my first set, 15 reps, and I was struggling with like 10 reps of a lower weight, and that was on my last set. So that was a little bit difficult, but you know, it's just something to learn from and to accept and, you know, not do again in the future. If I go on any other trips and stuff, like, I wouldn't do anything this long, but I need to make sure that I do some research beforehand to make sure I can get the things that I need in order to be my best self. But then on the other hand, you know, my body's very familiar with being this way, and so I'm sure once I can get back to sort of my regular environment, I'll be able to rebuild quite quickly. I'm probably going to go into a bit of a caloric surplus and reduce the activity ever so slightly to get my strength back up before I can kind of get back on my normal routines again. But there is something else that I kind of noticed as well, is like the mental games that your mind will play on you when you're not, you know, operating at your best self. And it made me realize that like the act of training itself is a huge part of being your best self. You feel like you're in better shape because you're doing the work. If you're sort of wired like me, you know, I'm wired to like enjoy effort and sort of feel good doing things like that. Because like I said, I noticed that even when I hadn't trained anywhere near my normal capacity, I still looked quite similar. And it made me stop for a second and think like, this is really interesting, because visually you don't look much different, but your mind is like not happy with this physique because you're not doing your normal effort. And you know, some people would dream of not being able to do anything and just click their fingers and have the perfect physique, and that doesn't appeal to me at all. I've never understood that mentality, like, because for me, I could probably train way less than I need to, and this trip has taught me this, but I enjoy the training, you know, it's great for the mind and all that sort of stuff, and so that's kind of where I am with that as well. So the way I've been kind of building myself back, as I came out of the hospital stay, I was sleeping like 10, 11 hours a night, and I was like still kind of groggy when I was waking up, so there was definitely lingering effects of that, and especially because I got a severe GI infection, which I didn't mention before actually. The gut and the brain are linked and stuff, so my mood was like really bad as well, because the gut infection lasted a lot longer than the hospital stay, but they gave me some antibiotics to take continually to eliminate it, and it's like only just about going now, and that's been literally like over 2 weeks since I actually left the hospital. You know, my stomach's kind of like getting back to normal now, and I've been very careful with what I've been eating, not having anything too rich and spicy, because it just like sends me to the bathroom straight away. I've been doing some just like footwork stuff, some agility work and some calisthenics things in my hotel room if there's space. You know, you can always find a little bit of space, just move some things around, and then just kind of trying to get back on the weightlifting when I can, you know, like when there's a gym and stuff like that. But it's like just having to accept that you're not going to be your best and as strong. That's like probably, I would say, like not really difficult, but it's like it's something that you have to contend with, because the first few times I did train again, I went to the gym with really high expectations and I was excited, and I just was not myself there, and it did a bit of a number on me mentally and kind of made me feel a bit disappointed in the session. And it wasn't until I reflected after, I was like, you don't need to be putting that pressure on yourself, especially with like what you've gone through and stuff like that. So yeah, just building back. And I know, you know, when I'm in my regular environment again, and the climate as well is another thing. I'm from England, which is a cold place. Like here is 30 degrees every single day. Even sat in the shade, there's sweat like coming out of my body just because it's so warm. That's another thing that helps a lot with it. Just getting back on those routines, but I know it's all going to come back anyway. On the way to the gym now. Well, I'm going to go and pick up a few bananas first, give me a bit of fuel, and then I'm going to head there. So, as you can see, I'm already in the gym attire. There is no wearing a warm-up hoodie or jumper or anything like that here. Literally, you just wear the gym attire and you're already sweating by the time you get to the gym. So these are the types of bananas that you get here. They're way smaller than the bananas you've probably seen from the UK or wherever you're from. And that's probably because they're not pumped with loads of genetically modified crap to make them grow much bigger. This seems to be kind of the standard wherever you go for bananas here, so I am going to trust it, but it means I have to eat more, which is always a good thing. Pretty tasty as well, actually. What isn't tasty though is my washed hairstyle. Literally, it's been like months without having it cut. But I'm pretty weird about things like that. As I am with food and stuff, you know, I don't like to make compromises for certain things, and my hair is one of them. I've had too many bad experiences of having it cut and looking like an absolute weirdo. So I'm just gonna wait until I get home and then get it fixed. But had 4 of these little bananas, which I think probably equates to maybe, well, that was what happened to one of them, and now it's absolutely covered in sand. So the face track thing has come on, so I'm gonna have another one now. And what I was saying was that basically probably equates to like 1.5 normal bananas. Such a shame bro has been covered in sand. So it's onto the gym now. And the island, can't remember if I mentioned before, like you can walk the whole length of the island in about 12 minutes. So everything's really close, and I think there are 2 gyms on the island. I went to one of them already, but it was one of those gyms where they had one machine trying to do like 3 or 4 jobs. And you know when they try and kind of like make it convenient and like it does all of these different things, but it doesn't really do any of them very well. And it was really modern and new, which was cool, but that was a bit of a problem, and the dumbbells weren't heavy enough and stuff like that. So there is another one that I'm heading to now, and when I say it's old, I mean it is old. Old, tired and grungy, but hopefully it will be able to get the job done today. I've never been to it before, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, we have arrived at the gym, and you know it's a gym because there's some pictures of some very muscular men on here, and I love how like some of them are doing bodybuilding poses and some of them are just models, but they're like, yeah, we'll just put everything on here, make it look cool. So gonna go in now, get the session done. So I'm just gonna walk you guys through a little bit of this gym session, what I was doing, what was going through my mind and stuff. So this is just a warm-up, and like I said in the rest of the video, when I recorded this I was much weaker. Like these weights that I'm using for warm-up are just way too light for what I would be doing at home normally, but it felt difficult here obviously with the sickness and all that sort of stuff. And then when I started going on to the bigger ones, sorry for the slightly unflattering angle there, this bench was an absolute nightmare as well. Like you can see, it's certainly not an adjustable bench, but it was all they had in there, so I had to like awkwardly climb on it, and this thing in the middle was right between your crotch. So yeah, not the best, but what I was saying, going on to the heavier dumbbells, I was just kind of trying my best with them really. These are not the weights that I would normally do, but you can see already here I'm really straining with them. It was really difficult, but you know, just about getting back on it, just trying your best and doing what you can. You know, it's better to maintain strength at kind of like a, you know, suboptimal level than just give up altogether, and then you've got to build back from further down. So a little bit of flat bench after the incline. I mainly do incline stuff because I'm trying to build up my upper chest. It's kind of one of my weaker areas. The mid chest is coming in quite well now, but I think for a lot of people the upper chest area is one of those kind of difficult to develop areas. It's a very small muscle, so I usually do incline, but I do like to do a little bit of flat as well sometimes. So that was what I was doing here. You can see as well like how warm I was already. Like I said, the Maldives like is the same temperature all the time, and there was no air conditioning in this gym, but I kind of like that, to be fair. I like to get really warm, I like to get a good sweat on. It just feels like you're more in tune and in flow with your body and stuff, so I think that's really good. Some people absolutely hate the heat, but you know, now I'm back in England, it's freezing and you have to wear hoodies and stuff in the gym, so it's a much different feeling, and I do, like I said, do like the heat. I do like to get a sweat on. Now this was incredibly awkward because this machine was just not built for this. You can see it kind of like slamming back into the position there, like the cable wasn't really long enough, and then there was also the leg restraints were above it, which just made it a really awkward angle to pull out for the row, but I just kind of had to make do. It was really, really strange. But you know, I did my best. You can see it from this angle as well, like really kind of awkward positioning. I would not like to sit like that. I'd also like to have my legs up higher normally, but this was what I was dealing with. So this session as well, because the gym was really limited, I didn't get to actually focus upon a singular muscle group, which is what I usually do. I usually train the muscle groups in isolation. And for this, I just did a bit of everything really. This was kind of how I did a lot of the sessions in the trip actually, was just do a little bit of everything. So you see I started with chest and now I'm doing back, which I normally wouldn't do. But with the limited equipment, this was kind of a, you know, a viable option of something that I could do. And it was pretty good, just kind of cooking the whole of the upper body really. You might have seen me do these before. I normally like to actually do them on a bench, facing the bench with it through the middle of my legs to kind of stabilize me, but that wasn't possible here, so had to do the old kneel on the ground and improvise that way. But I really like these isolated lat pull downs actually from this elevated position. They're really, really good. A bit of an old lat spread for you guys there. You can see again the sweat sort of just pouring off my body. Again, these aren't really my favorite exercises. I do them sometimes. I would prefer something like a T-bar row instead of these, but these are, you know, these single arm rows are just something that you can use if that isn't available. Again, another back exercise there, doing all sorts of different things. I think I finished with some shoulder stuff, which you'll see in a minute probably, but yeah, just working through the different exercises really. Getting onto the shrugs now. I've only just started doing these kind of recently actually. I never used to do them before, but I quite like, you know, building that area around the neck. Like my neck is kind of pretty wide anyway, just from working out, and I think from doing martial arts and boxing a lot. So doing the shrugs, you know, like helps with that as well. And then obviously we just got the dumbbell lateral raises here, great shoulder exercise. I do like to use these to warm up for other sessions as well actually. I've started doing that more, which I'll speak about in other videos, is just doing a bit more of a warm up before I actually go into using the heavier dumbbells and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was pretty much the session, guys. Like, after this, I think I show you around the gym on a little clip, but that was it really. You know, just good enough to work the body. You see I got a great sweat on there and stimulate the muscles. What is up, guys? Just finished the session. I am absolutely cooked, dripping in sweat like I've done some cardio, but was to be expected. Forgot to show the gym when I came in, so I said it was kind of a little bit rough and ready, right? Pretty basic, but this is what it's like in a lot of these places. But you know, it's good enough to get a workout done, stimulate some of the muscles. Got the old pull down machine here, a little bit of a row here, although these things are a little bit awkward and kind of in the way, the leg restraints for the row. And also, if you check the distance between the pull down and the leg restraints, you kind of need to have the longest legs in the world to be able to use it, so that's a bit weird. They didn't have an adjustable bench, so did a little bit of flat bench, and I used this bench here and removed the barbell to do some incline chest press. So I did a little bit of everything today in the gym. Didn't just do one muscle group like usual because it's a little bit limited, as I said, in terms of equipment, so I couldn't really focus on one muscle group. But you know, got a little bit of a workout done, and that is all that matters.